Hi, and welcome back to On Guard Cigar Salon. I'm Mr. Christopher.
I'm Ray Spannon.
I'm Graylin Thornton.
I'm the Cigar Pig.
I'm Amp.
And today we are very, very lucky to have one of the most photographed, one of the most beautiful, one of the most fabulous nuns in the world, Sister Roma.
Thank you so much. You did that just like we rehearsed.
Yeah.
It's in my contract. That's literally what you have to say. Thank you so much. And I just want to say I'm so excited to finally be here because I've been on all of your jocks about getting on this show for so long. Because I love you all so much. I honestly, we have such a history, and it means everything to be here. And just so you don't know, I wish this was like a scratch and sniff because when I walked in, I was like, this smells so great right now. I mean, this is just incredible. Oh.
And we're so happy you're here because we want to talk about volunteering and volunteer organizations. And of course, you are part of one of the biggest volunteer organizations there is, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization?
Of course, I would love to. You know, I've been a sister for I'm in my 36th year of being the sisters. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I graduated from college and I moved here. And within 2 years, I had met the sisters. And it, like, my head exploded. I was like, who are these crazy, like, show girl, drag queen nuns? And I learned that the sisters were one of the first groups ever to produce a safer sex pamphlet called Playfair that educated the community about how to avoid HIV/AIDS, which was really ravaging the community. The sisters were one of the first groups to hold a fundraiser for people who were sick and dying and needed help. And when I met them, I kind of had been in the city for 2 years, and I was like a gay kid in a gay candy store. Like, it was all about dick and booze, and, you know, I had a great time. But the sisters really made me realize that, oh my God, like, I care. Like, I care about my community, and I care about my civil rights. And they made me look around and see that there was work that needed to be done. So the sisters really were pioneers in the fight against HIV and AIDS. And at the time, the order had reached a real big pinnacle when Sister Boom Boom ran for supervisor. You might remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, which was huge. But then HIV/AIDS happened. A lot of sisters left the order. People went in different directions. And when I joined, there was really just 5 active members in San Francisco. So we were a really small group. But we were super visible and super obnoxious. And I started hosting Pride in San Francisco. I started hosting nightclubs. And the order grew here in San Francisco. And now we have orders in 4 continents, if you can imagine that.
And now it's an all-volunteer run organization, correct?
100% volunteer, absolutely.
And that's what we want to talk about today, because one of the questions we get asked a lot is, how do I enter the kink scene? I'm new to the kink scene. How do I get involved? And one of the best ways, I think, is volunteering. And everyone here has volunteered for some organization, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah.
What have you volunteered? How's it changed your life?
Well, I started volunteering at a really young age because I was growing up here in the Bay Area. But now, one of my favorite organizations is the Tom of Finland Foundation. And because I'm very close to Dirk, who is the founder of that organization. And, you know, he made me understand that, you know, we have to be involved in the community and you know, especially growing up here in San Francisco, because like you know, we were raising money because we were leather people and we had the AIDS emergency funds. So we really had to work hard during those time periods.
What about you, Race?
Actually, the first time I volunteered was in Chicago when Anita Bryant was appearing, and they needed people to organize protests.
Oh.
And I helped with the organization of the protest, and that was really kind of the first time I got my volunteer chops going.
Did you throw a pie in her face? Was that you?
Was that you?
Don't you wish we revealed it here today.
No, I wanted to, but no, that wasn't me. But that was the beginning.
Yeah, that's
Do
great.
people even know who she is anymore?
No.
Who is that?
I'm asking it because I know who she is, but people at home aren't going to know that maybe.
So Anita Bryant is a singer. I'll be kind. She was a representative of Florida Orange Juice, and she came out with a very
Save the Children, mean-spirited anti-gay campaign.
Kind of how they're going
Today,
down
yes,
drag today, right?
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Exactly, and there were a lot of protests, and we had a lot of support from the people that she was appearing actually at a venue, and the event manager came out and said, we don't want her here either, but we signed a contract a year ago. Just let the audience in, but protest the hell out of this.
Yep.
And that was the venue owner. You know,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they went and pied her live on camera.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Yeah, really seriously Google it. Like it's
Oh, we'll show you. We'll show
It's
you.
the best to watch.
It's so good. Yeah, she was hateful. She really was, and so pious. And just, ugh.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, she was a Miss America.
Yes.
Right. Yep. That's how she started.
That's a, yeah.
So the first time I ever volunteered was I had just got a new car, and I was just really so happy to get a new car that I thought I need to give back. And so I started working for Food for Life, volunteering, delivering groceries to people's houses that couldn't do it up in Sonoma, that couldn't get out of the house, that were homebound because of AIDS. And it was one of the most rewarding things I did because people were so grateful. And you got to like hand bags of groceries directly to them and see how grateful they were. And it just made me feel good. And it was like the highlight of my week every week delivering
That's
food.
great. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's pretty. Wow.
yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah. Well, I started actually in the 70s. There used to be the Mattachine Society, and they had a newspaper called The Fifth Freedom. So I did some things with them, but I think the most important was I became a nurse. And when I was a baby nurse, we started doing educational programs in hospitals because the staff was not aware. And believe it or not, their in-service education departments did not have specific AIDS-related, then it was called HTLV3. It happened so new. And if you want to know something, we used things like what the sisters and organizations like that put out. Because believe it or not, at that time in the early 80s, you know, regular medical organizations were not putting anything out yet. And we were trying to get out to the community simple things like tears, sweat, and saliva. Do not spread AIDS. Stop with this craziness.
Right.
So information.
Isn't it great to be from San Francisco?
Well, we live in a bubble,
Well, we live in a
so
bubble, but we also live in a place where there were so many first. The Mattachine, I mean, that was one of the first like LGBTQ organizations
Absolutely.
ever, and the sisters and the Imperial Court and the leather community,
Oh, yeah.
and the way that we all work together and we stand up for each other and we raise money together to help people. That's like at the core of who we are.
what do you think has made the sisters so successful as all volunteer for so long? Because there's so many organizations that can't just stay all volunteer.
Well, there's a lot of passion behind it.
That's true.
I always say that I think sisters are born, not made. You have to hear the calling. You have to have a real commitment to service in the community, but you also have to have a certain amount of, you know, look at me, theatrical, you know, I mean, hello.
Really?
A bit, a little bit.
Theatrical? I don't know if
Little
I'd
bit.
say that.
Not all sisters are quite as crazy as I am, but you know, everybody, we all, even though we're all so completely different, very diverse. The order has diversified greatly since the original sisters were basically like white men, and now we've got everything. Everybody is very well represented, and everybody brings a new passion to the order. And if you look around, there's never a lack of things that need to be done. There's never a lack of communities to help. There's never a lack of ways to be of service or to entertain. So I think that the sisters, the thing about sisters in each city is that they look around and they see where they are most needed. Mm-hmm. In Atlanta, we have an amazing, it's called Lost and Found Youth. It's a secondhand store, but it also, is like a hospice, not a hospice. It's a, what am I trying to say?
Like a house for
Like
homeless,
an
halfway
LGBT
house,
center.
a
It's
safe
like a halfway
house.
house, safe house. Thank you so much. It's like they support the safe house with a thrift store,
Oh,
and that's
great.
an amazing organization. In Vegas, they have a drug assistance program. It's just, and then people like in Berlin, you know, we're like, well, do you do a lot of fundraising? They're all like, why? Like, what for? Everything, they're well taken care of. And so they don't
They
have
are.
Right. Welcome to America.
Right, their
We have to
medical
take care of
community
ourselves.
takes care of them.
Yeah, they have health care, and they're like, you know, they're good. So, but they do a lot of political activism and a lot of just the really, so our actual vows are to expiate stigmatic guilt and to promulgate universal joy.
Oh
Which
my
is-
God, that must
We
be
love
really
joy.
huge right now as we are being
What we're
attacked,
going
especially
through.
drag queens are being attacked right now.
Yeah.
So
You
You know,
define
one of my-
promulgate?
Promulgate.
What was the word?
Promulgate.
What is that?
Promulgate universal joy. Promulgate is to like expel and
Yeah.
To spread around.
spread
To spread around.
Yeah.
To foster.
Well, and like you
Right,
mentioned
yeah.
Berlin, but I have to tell you, one time I was on vacation in France and I was young and poor, come out of the subway and there were these sisters walking by and I was like, oh my God, it's like home. You know?
I love it. Yes.
You know, one of my favorite events was at Lazy Bear when the sisters would do the bingo. And that was so much fun because it was like people from all over Guerneville, like, you know, poor people and old people all playing bingo together and screaming things like, you know, free shit. That was a chant.
That's
that
cool.
they did.
Who doesn't
It was
love
like,
free
Who doesn't
shit?
love
Who doesn't?
You know?
The
Well,
sisters in Russian River still do bingo, and they're
Oh, they
huge,
do?
really popular, very well attended. I am impressed by the amount of money that the sisters pull out of that community.
Yeah.
I mean, they raise a lot of
They do.
money in that little community.
Well, you know, I used to, in another job, I used to work with Coming Home Hospice, and the sisters used to do bingo at Most Holy Redeemer. And I have to tell you, that was the #1 bridge between us being able to rent their own convent and you go, oh yeah, the sisters, the gay community, and they are very good in that little part of the Castro. But you guys always had bingo, and we were the recipients of the money, and I'll tell you, it really made a difference.
It really does, and I'm glad that you mentioned bingo because we are doing a sister bingo March 25th.
Okay, we didn't know
Sister
this, by the
bingo.
way.
Free shit,
Yeah,
free shit,
free
yeah.
shit.
We're coming back to do sister bingo on
Okay.
March.
And it's fun.
And it's very
Oh
fun.
God,
Just
who
don't-
gave Pig a whistle?
We'll get there. Foreshadowing.
It's at the Harvey Milk Center for the Arts, and
Okay.
it's on March 25th. So,
Oh, that's
Wow.
great.
yeah,
That's
very
great.
excited about
We
it.
will show up.
How random.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're talking about
Braylon,
bingo.
you mentioned AEF before. What are some other all volunteer? Because AEF is all volunteer, correct?
Not anymore.
No, it hasn't. So, in this happens a lot because Claw used to be all volunteer.
Right.
Leather Archives and Museum, is that all volunteer?
No. There's at least,
So,
at least two.
are there any that are all volunteer anymore?
Well, I'm wearing a shirt from Real Bad.
Real
All
Bad.
right.
And the Real Bad organization, actually, they have a GGRF is their name, gay rights. What is it? I forget what it stands for. That's terrible.
Grassroots.
But anyway,
Yes,
yeah,
It's on the
gay rights.
screen
It's
below.
it'll be in the links. But they are an all volunteer organization.
Yeah.
They have this big event called Real Bad, which is during Folsom Street Fair. It's a big dance. 100% of the people are volunteers, and they have raised over the course of the time that they've been doing this $3.6 million.
Incredible.
That's
That has
amazing.
gone to a multitude
Incredible.
of nonprofits. This year alone, they've 230,000 just in 2022. They do amazing work, all volunteer, and I think this is a good representation of how you can have an all volunteer effort
Yes.
and do tremendous good in the community.
And people have no idea how hard it is to even raise 1,000 or 5,000.
Oh, yeah.
To raise it is an act of Congress to raise that much.
Well,
you know,
Congress isn't
Congress
that great, right?
sucks, but
The last podcast that we did, we talked about title holders,
Right.
and I just wanted to throw in there that title holders are volunteers. You know, they have to do all these things that people expect them to do, and you know.
Right, the Imperial
So
Court.
be nice to them.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your shirt. I also have a volunteer shirt, which is LDG, Leatherman's Discussion Group. I believe they're all volunteer as
They
well.
are.
They are.
And you have.
I have Mr. Friendly because I was always associated with HIV care. So this is a wonderful, wonderful organization that really does great things.
Gear up.
Gear Up is
Gear
also, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure there's many more that we're not remembering.
I'm volunteering right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you were Mr. Friendly. Wasn't that the name of the title? I think this is
well,
your shirt.
I was Mr. Friendly, the last Mr., but now it's Team Friendly.
Oh, it is
It's
team
much
friendly.
more inclusive
Okay.
and less about just the guys because HIV affects more than just guys, turns out.
Absolutely.
So, Roma, what would you say is the hardest part about volunteering that most people don't realize?
You know, I think like with anything, it's just motivating yourself to get out there and do it. Like really half of the chores of life is just showing up, you know, and being present and doing the work. But you know, I also people are so often, because I've been doing this for so long and done just all of these organizations that you've talked about, I've worked with in one way or another. And they're like, you know, thank you for your work. And I'm all like, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
Right.
It really doesn't. It just brings me so much joy And it's just such a beautiful way to spend your life. I feel like if you can get out of your own way and look around and see people who need help and volunteer, it just comes back to you like 1,000 times.
And the people you meet and the friendships you cultivate because you're
yes.
both doing something in a common way.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are times when I don't feel like beating this
Yeah.
gorgeous.
You didn't roll out of bed like
I feel
that?
like being that gorgeous.
I know. But, but you have to like stop and go, look, you made a commitment, bitch. You're gonna, it doesn't have to be perfect, although it
Does it
usually
ever get hard? Does
yeah,
it ever get hard?
there are times when you're just like, oh, I cannot believe that I said I would do this for these, and then you pull yourself together and you're like, go do it.
Yeah.
And once you get there, you're just like, oh, this is why I exist.
Yeah,
That's wonderful.
I get that.
Yeah.
It could
What do
be-
you think is the hardest part about volunteering?
Well, I think it could be discouraging when you volunteer and you get there and things aren't as perfect as you thought they should be. But then you have to realize, oh, those people are volunteering too, so you have to give them a break as well.
I think it's sometimes people enter a volunteering thing thinking like real bad. It's just gonna be fun.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's a party. It's a dance party, and and you have to volunteer and be at the door, and then you're all of a sudden going, oh, this is work.
Yes.
Oh, they want me to work.
I don't know where your close tag is.
Yeah.
Mine was genuine. Mine was
Yours genuine.
Well, he's an actor.
So I have a question. So some organizations get really big. Should volunteers be paid? Or how should they be compensated? Should they be compensated in any way?
So do you mean in addition to like executive staff and people?
Well, that's
because
the
there's
thing.
boards.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these organizations are so huge. They have very well paid
Right.
people who manage them and run them and represent, like GLAAD, for example.
Right.
I think that volunteers just are sort of, it's in their nature to be altruistic. Like, I don't think volunteers do it looking for some kind of compensation.
I agree.
I think the compensation is knowing that you're doing good. Like, you bringing food to the door is like, that's the reward. That's why you do it.
And
That's why I do it. I mean, I think that's what motivates
agree,
most
yeah.
volunteers.
I don't think people do expect to get paid. However, organizations get so big that they need full-time people. And then what happens when you get to an organization that gets that large and it feels like it's not volunteerism anymore?
Right. When you've done a fundraiser and you're like, we raised $1,000, and you're like, 3 cents will go to the chicken.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
That's not good, and that does bother me. That is
Yeah.
really. But like you said, it's huge. There's a lot. It's a full-time job to manage these organizations.
It is. And some of like the Sisters, the total volunteer organizations, have far more impact than some of the paid ones.
Right.
And I think what some of the paid ones do is they have very good fundraisers, which I applaud them for, and certainly they have wonderful people working for them. But there's a very limited queer dollar. It's a very small donor source. And we noticed that during the HIV years, and it started migrating towards marriage equality. And some of the HIV money actually dried up. And we said, look, this is a paid organization that needs a budget, and it can't say, oh, we can't do such and such. And they didn't. But there are some bigger organizations in our community who I do think take a lot of money out of the community, and the total volunteer, like the Sisters, do more than them.
I also think it depends on what you're asking. If you are asking somebody to fly across the country and pay for a hotel room and have all their meals out of town and things like that, maybe there should at least be compensation in the form of flying them, putting them up.
Right.
So you're
feeding
talking
them.
about presenters or MCs or something.
Yeah,
For gay events.
Yeah, people that have pop their own money to volunteer.
Yeah, and to me, that's not paying. That's an event cost. That's not the individual's cost.
So they
And it
should be
seen that way.
compensated for expenses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the event. It has not, the person is the star or the person needed. So it isn't about them. But what I love is you guys have all stepped up and paid for it to actually do those roles.
Actually, Pig, you for our organization, you buy all our lunches.
And
Yeah.
and it's because of what Roma said. It's because the stuff is important, and I do believe this is how information gets out.
But let me ask you this, and you especially, when you're having a fundraiser or something and you have the choice of getting a bigger star that you have to pay, or I don't want to say a lesser star because that's not very nice, but someone else who's not so big of a star, do you pay the star, or how do you balance that? How do you make that decision?
Well, the place to start is always to ask them if they're willing to volunteer their time.
Yeah.
And like you said, usually we're like, we'll cover your travel. We'll find put you out somewhere. But the sisters have done that. Like we brought Trixie Mattel to our Project Nunway, which is one of our biggest fundraisers, and she just slashed her appearance fee for us. I mean, she was very generous, but we paid her.
Yeah.
And she is a huge draw.
Yeah. And you have to spend money to make money.
Well,
Right.
it's navigating and balancing that what someone is worth. Like, yeah, Trixie Mattel is obviously a lot more beneficial to your cause than someone who doesn't have social media, that doesn't have a presence or a pull. But for just one like a day, you too can help all the leather daddies. Cue the Sarah McLachlan music. By leaving a comment down below, you too can help and volunteer your time to. No, but seriously, like we'll volunteer at things sometimes, and every once in a while. It also depends on the organization too, like how much that organization has to even help whatever their organizers, fundraisers, volunteers to make it possible.
Well, so I've been. Can I just like my 90% of everything that I do, if you ever see me, like I'm hosting something for a charity or I'm on stage somewhere doing something, it's volunteer.
Yeah.
Because to me, I always feel like this little organization I'm not here to take money. And over COVID, I did so many virtual events. I found these great new organizations that I could become involved with and do things with. And it's just like, I'm not going to, do that. But if I'm doing something like hosting Southern Decadence in New Orleans or somewhere where there's like a huge budget or a corporate sponsor that's willing to pay me to go, I'm all, give me your money, or
give me that corporate money.
Get a plane ticket and all that.
Yeah, and I think those organizations should, because that's what propagates it for the future. People can't do it if they keep hitting a brick wall. But organizations that have the money, that's actually investing in the future, that person is able to do it. And
then when you're doing something where there's a huge budget and you're looking around and you're like, I know that bitch didn't come here for me. What am I doing? So, but you have to decide. That's the beauty about being a volunteer and being like an independent drag queen. You can decide. It's up to you. If you find something that you really believe in and you want to support and not charge, go for it. Like, that's beautiful.
So that leads me to my next question, which is, so you have tons of people from different walks of life volunteering for an organization, and they all have opinions and personalities. How do you handle different opinions and how people think things should be run, and if someone gets a chip on their shoulder? Have you ever seen that in an organization?
No. What are you talking about? Along the lines of serving and bringing food, one of my favorite organizations is Tenderloin Tessie. The holiday dinners. I volunteered with them for the last 15 years. Of course, I don't do Easter because that's our big anniversary party in Dolores Park, but for Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's usually how I spend my holidays. There are people there, both the guests who I've seen for so many years, and all the volunteers have become like family. But there are people who have definite opinions, because I usually greet the people, squirt them with hand sanitizer, keep the mood light, engage people, and then we seat them. And there's a way to do it. There's volunteers who stand here, then they have to pick a table to bring 8 people, and everybody has their own idea about how you should lead the 8 people to a table and how it's going to work. And sometimes it's just look, why don't you go serve salad?
That's how do you deal with that? Do you ever turn anyone away who wants to volunteer because they just don't have the personality for it?
There's different roles. There's so much to do at certain events. Sometimes maybe they shouldn't be so front-facing.
Oh, that's a great way to word it.
Speaking of front-facing, is there... How much do you think is altruism versus self-interest when people volunteer?
Meaning,
and
how much
is it healthy, or is it I use my narcissism for good? Is it?
Right. Yeah.
Is it?
Are they posing? Are they doing it for
right?
clout?
Are they doing it for
to run for emperor one day? So they show up to I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have a problem if it's healthy. If it isn't really blatant and kind of, but if somebody's doing it because they want to get ahead or move, meet people, and they have a skill we need, I'm fine with it.
You make a good point, because there is self-interest
Yeah.
in volunteering. I'm new to a town. I want to meet people. I want to network. I want to find out more about this organization. They are going to have me volunteer doing this thing, and I need to learn how to do that thing, so it benefits me too. So it's a two-way street.
It is.
You know, we all go to contests sometimes because we want to be seen there, because we want to be seen being supportive, whether or not we care about the contest or not.
Wow.
Kind of true.
But it's true. He's being honest. That is
But
true.
you know, that's part of being in a community. Because if people don't show up, that event isn't a success. So I don't see that as being a problem. It's because if it wasn't a community you loved, you wouldn't go even at all.
But I think we can sort of tell when you're volunteering with someone, and it's just a feeling. You know, like there's a sincerity that's really hard to fake.
Yeah.
For
And some-
people, I think.
And sometimes we're kinksters. We like fetish ourselves up in rubber or leather, and we want to be seen, and we want to strut, and we want to be all sexy.
We might have like a sexy boa we want to put
Right,
on our
right.
head. You never know.
in our scene, that's part of what we do is we want to be seen, and
Yeah, it's our red carpet.
it's our red carpet. So
And I have to say that I feel like when people invite me to come to their event or occasion, automatically I'm like, they want this.
Yeah.
You know, like nobody wants to see just plain old me out of drag show up and be like, hey, you know, like people are like, is Roma here?
Is Roma
I didn't know Roma was coming, you know, so I mean, it's like,
Ooh, that's on a side note. Has anyone talked shit about you to your face when you're out of drag? I'm just curious.
oh my God, that would be so amazing.
That is a good question.
Yeah, you know what? She's always bugged me too. Tell me more. But you know, after doing this for so many years, people know. First of all, they recognize my voice. You know,
Yeah.
the minute they're like, "Oh," or they just know what I look like because you know I'm on social media and I
Yeah.
do post pictures of myself out of drag. But I feel sort of obligated to go to the effort, and I also feel like I want to show my respect and appreciation for people, so I take the effort to show up like this.
Mhm.
and you do show up.
And we think that you
I
do.
have
And
so much
how long
respect
has
for
this
you.
been your look?
Well, I just posted a video on Instagram, and I started with my look from like 1987,
Right.
which was very, very war paint. But and all the way up till today. But I put on the posting I put 1987 to 2023, and
I know.
everybody
I know.
started posting. I thought you died. Don't do that. My heart skipped a beat. I'm all, so I had to change the caption to say I'm not dead.
This is not a retrospective.
Yeah, okay.
But
I
the
mean, like,
1987 part, you know.
yeah. I mean, it was just, but I was kind of flattered. People thought, oh, they think I'm only 36 years old. But yeah, so that was an interesting learning thing for me as often as I post, not to put in a black box, put the dates because people are like, she's dead. But this has basically always been my look. I've
I love
refined
it.
it. I mean, I became really close friends with a few trans women who taught me some real magic about makeup and then a bunch of drag queens, of course, over the years. And I watched and learned and
Well,
finessed it.
because somebody told me, oh no, the sisters always have to have a bra as a habit. I said, I don't think that's true. I think it was only one or two who did that.
Well, we have our
Remember?
nun bun.
Oh,
and
you do?
And I do have that.
Oh,
That
see,
is
so-
part of our San Francisco. Every order around the world has a unique headpiece that they wear.
So that is a
Like
thing.
there's cheese heads in Wisconsin. They have like,
I love
and then New
that.
York has pizza boxes.
Oh,
and,
God.
Yeah.
Really?
See,
I gotta
so
see
that
this
person was kind of right.
Kind of right, yeah.
I told them they weren't, but that's
No.
all right.
Okay, so now we're in the area of collabs, like Just for Fans and OnlyFans. They collab all the time. That's how they hook up. Can organizations collaborate with each other successfully? Have you experienced much success with that?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we were all been sort of talking about that.
Yeah.
The way that the Imperial Court and the leather community and the sisters and all these organizations come together for a certain cause or to raise money, and we play really nice together. But one of the things that I started like in 1989 was the Stop the Violence campaign.
Yep.
There had been a huge increase in hate crimes
Yep.
around the Castro and Dolores Park. And I was just pissed off, and I was like, you know what, I have this little platform, and I have a Mac SE30 or whatever it was. So I designed the pink triangle and put Stop the Violence and started a whole campaign
I
to
love
raise
that.
awareness.
Yeah.
And then we brought whistles in, and we've done that ever since, basically. But we partner with Onyx.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
yes.
outreach to the
And
Roma and your
and
community. And
guess what I found?
what?
Oh, we're gonna see.
It's deep in his pocket though.
Of course it is.
Dig in there.
Yeah. Those are good. I have our whistle from the Stop
Oh
the
wow,
Violence
that,
campaign
it is the
that we
whistle.
did with the sisters, and you know, I think we should do that again because the violence has stopped
I agree.
1,000%.
again.
I would literally,
Yes.
people haven't. I've been hearing so many people saying that they were doped and roofied, and they've come out of the powerhouse and the cinch. Now I've heard.
Yeah.
And they woke up on the sidewalk bloody and have no idea.
Yeah, and not
Or
just
they
San
were jumped.
Francisco,
Yeah.
around the nation,
Right.
Yes.
we are being attacked more than ever.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's
And I'm
scary.
not sure the next generation knows how to protect themselves. And
Right.
I think it's up to us to teach them
Yeah.
and
This
to
was a
start these
blow-
campaigns.
3 times, right?
Blow 3
Yep.
times
Show us.
loud.
Let's do it.
Thank
That's it.
Which is great. 'Cause
And that it draws attention
It
to
does.
you.
Well, it used to
Yeah.
be in the streets. Other queers knew because of that campaign
Right.
that somebody's in trouble.
Right.
And that was such a successful campaign. And yet we have people like HRC taking millions of dollars out of our community, and they're attending, the next dinner in Washington.
I love how
When-
you snuck that in.
Well, when that saves lives, just like the education about HIV from both your organizations did.
Yeah, so let's do that again. Let's
Yeah,
do
I
that campaign
totally
again.
would love to do that.
That'd be a great
I think it's a great idea.
It's really kind of funny to me because Onyx, is a club for men of color and kink, and we partner with the sisters all the time. It's just a really great collaboration. When we did our anniversary party this past year, Sister Tonka Bell did our blessing, and I don't get emotional in public, but it was a
Was it?
beautiful moment.
I
Oh,
bet. So much work and so much passion goes into those things. It is emotional.
And the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence have been allies of the leather kink community from the very start. They have always been there whenever they've been asked to show up. They've always been supportive. They've always been, I think, an integral part of supporting our community. And it is really something
Well-
I'm thankful for.
The poster of Sister Boom Boom flying over San Francisco and the broom and it said, and I have a friend who had a poster that knew Dianne Feinstein, and he said, I'll punch your hole if you punch mine, because that's how
Yes.
we vote here in California. And that went internationally. And that really was, you remember it more than I do, I'm sure, but it really did give presence, and it really
Yeah, she was
gave
the
a whole
Wicked Witch.
platform.
She was the Wicked Witch.
It was
flying
so
over
funny.
City Hall,
Everybody
and it
had
said
it.
"Surrender, Diane."
Yes.
Oh, it did. That's
yes,
right.
yes.
Surrender, Diane.
I knew Sister Boom Boom as a leather person.
Jack,
So,
yeah,
right, well,
absolutely.
yeah.
Jack Furtick, yeah.
You have
The
a
last
lot of
place I
leather
saw
sisters.
him was
Oh, we do.
at the Mr. San Francisco Leather Contest years ago.
Sure.
Yeah, it's-
I think that's you ask about why are the sisters so successful for so many years. It's because we do reach out and touch all
Right.
these different communities: the trans community, the people of color, the API community. Like we are very passionate about all of these things: women's breast cancer, LGBT youth, the queer arts. Like you'll find a sister almost at every one of these, with working with all these different communities.
So Leather Daddy Skin Company is a plant-based skincare line with a kinky twist. Leather, scotch, vanilla, and 18 erotic spices are bound to get the blood flowing, getting you ready to dominate your day. If you use offer code ONGUARD, you'll get 10% off your order. So thank you very much, Leather Daddy Skin Co.
Well, what I think is important is that the sisters are peaceful but still confrontational. And that's really important because we are a marginalized community. And I don't care, there is no major political organization that is truly fighting for us. They might not hate us, and they might want us to do well, but they're not fighting. And like even when the sisters did the thing with Muni, that hit international news. And it stopped all that bullshit.
In a way, you're doing activism. So
Oh.
is activism and volunteerism, can they go hand in hand?
Activism is really at the core of everything
The
that the
sisters.
sisters do, and we you know, you don't even have to get in someone's face. Just showing up like this is enough to just trigger and to send people on a spiral.
Yeah, when are you
You know
guys
what I mean?
doing
Like,
your
you're
Tennessee
like,
tour? You're
I'm
going to do a
just
Tennessee tour?
Go.
I love it. Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, it's just like, I'm just existing. Excuse me. But they get really upset, and
Yeah.
it's nice to be around people who appreciate it and love it and give you the compliments and the accolades and things. But honestly, we kind of do it for the people who just can't take it.
Right.
You know, there are some people who just could read a newspaper right through you when you're next to them, but you're like,
Yeah, but the
But
work you guys have
talked
done.
a little bit about, being so successful. Easter.
Oh,
Easter in
Easter's
the
like
park.
the biggest thing in the city now. I mean, it's huge.
Just
And it's
so,
fun.
Can you describe that?
yeah.
People know?
so it's become one of San Francisco's most cherished, iconic
It
traditions.
is.
And
We were there
I think it's
together
all
last
because
year.
of Hunky Jesus, actually. The Hunky
Hunky
Jesus.
Jesus.
contest
Hunky Jesus is
is
great.
absolutely incredible. So it's
And
a
Foxy
free,
Mary.
And Foxy Mary, and there's a bonnet contest. So it's the Sisters' anniversary. The Sisters were founded in 1979 on Easter weekend. So about 20 plus years ago, we decided let's have a free party for the community to thank them for allowing us to be of service and for working with us. So we started in Collingwood Park, and it was kind of
Little.
small. It's very cute. And when it rained, we would go into the school to the
love it.
auditorium, and on our 20th anniversary, we thought, you know what we should do? We should close Castro Street and have a really big party for our 20th anniversary. And that really upset a lot of people. that divided the Board of Supervisors in half. Thank God we had Mark Leno at the
Yeah.
time to stand up for us. And the community came out and they compared us to Nazis holding a celebration during the...
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was just insane. And it became so heated that CNN came to San Francisco, and this is when they did stuff like the OJ trial. Like they had one story and they just stuck on it with cameras all the time, and they followed us around the Castro
What year are you
for
talking?
like 3 days. So our 20th anniversary, so we were 79, so that would have been 99.
99.
99. Wow.
So we had a big meeting and we were like, this is blowing up, this is really crazy, and we're like, we could never pay for this kind of publicity.
There's no bad dress.
We
Good
were
for
so
you.
happy.
Good.
So we had a core of us that were selected to go out and speak to the media and the press, and they followed us around Castro Street for like 2 days, just talking to people and talking to us about
That's
the event.
great.
So when we actually had it did get cleared, we got the street closure, we had like 20,000 people. Like it was
That's
absolutely
wonderful.
insane. So after that, it took a whole new trajectory. And we decided this is too big for Collingwood Park. We hit it, we made it. So we went to Dolores Park.
So
Yeah.
when an organization gets that big and you have that many crowds and numbers, so have you ever had to have staffing needs beyond people that were sisters?
Oh, we
How
have
do you do
volunteers.
that?
We have a lot of volunteers who work with us. There are some of our volunteers we couldn't do it without them.
Right.
They know how to get the permits, they know how to get the porta potties, they know how to they take care of a lot of things for us. And there's actually if you go online, there's a way to volunteer right now for Easter this year,
Oh,
which
fantastic.
is April 9th. And it's going to be. We're also doing a documentary about Hunky Jesus this year.
Oh, that's great.
So they're going to be filming.
Oh,
the whole
good,
thing. Yeah.
good.
Well, the Sisters in Onyx, my club, do a lot of events together, and the Sisters are doing our Juneteenth beer bus at the Eagle it's on June 18th this year. And it's an amazing collaboration again because, we're an all-black or an all-POC organization, and then to have the sisters working with us, it says a lot
That's
about
great.
our community.
Yes, and we have to thank Daddy Ray Tilton for that
Oh,
because
yeah.
this is his annual Father's Day, big, huge. It's supposed to be the biggest beer bust of the year. We're going to make $1 million, and
Oh,
it's going
that's
to be it's going to be incredible for the organization.
That's
So,
wonderful.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
For
thank you, of course.
That's great. And then, so we're talking about a whole bunch of different organizations. What about kink organizations? How does...
There are so many kink organizations, clubs, events that people can volunteer for, and it's a great way to meet other kinksters.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get involved in the community. If you're at an event, you can watch the door. Often they will give you a pass to the event for watching the door for so many hours or sitting at a table and registering people. If you have some skills, you can go and be an educator and help people learn things.
I have skills.
You
Can you educate us on
To
that?
volunteer.
can be needed though.
Yeah,
there he is.
Needed.
I think Claw, for instance, has all volunteer-run educators.
They
Correct?
do.
Yeah.
It's all volunteer.
And
Yeah.
I think they had over 100 classes last time.
They did, and they typically do. And almost every event like that, whether it's a conference or a one-off education event, or it's a club or an organization having a beer bust and needing to staff a food table or take tickets or sell raffle tickets or whatever, that's all volunteer. There's so many ways to get involved in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But-
doesn't have to be. Oh, go ahead, Al.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want to get involved, just ask.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't need permission as much as just like ask the people what they need help with.
And they're never going to say, no, we don't need help, usually.
Everyone's got skills.
Everyone has skills and they always have needs, and they'll put you on a list if need be and say, we'll call you when we need some help.
Right. And for the person who might be shy, or like you say, they're new to the community or they want to break into it, what better way than to be working it? Because it gives you this halo of, everybody wants to fuck the bartender, so if you're working an event, it's a great way to get to meet people.
And if you're an introvert and you are kind of shy and you can tell the organizer, can I do my task can be something where I'm just sitting there maybe taking tickets.
Coat check.
Yeah, coat check something. But at least they get to meet people and they can maybe come out of their shell a little bit and network and make friends.
Well, you mentioned Ray Tilton. Ray and I actually started in the mid '80s as little leather boys, working at the Sunday beer bus for the Leather Daddies.
Ah.
And then we had to do everything because, it was a volunteer thing. So we were either on stage or, pouring beer, because then you had the pitchers, you had to pour
Yeah,
the beer,
sure did.
selling raffle
I've done
tickets.
that.
So people need that all the time.
And you say that's how you started out. And look, you really are a leader in that community. So, well, you are, but, so people, that's not the end stage when you volunteer for one. It really is starting a vein in your life that you obviously want to do.
It's also great if you want to volunteer. Let's say you don't have a lot of money and you want to go to an event.
Yeah.
And you go to the organizer and say, I can't afford to go to this event.
But
what volunteering can I do so I can get into the event and attend the rest of the event for free? And they'll always make a way.
And I think a lot of events plan that way, don't
do.
they?
Yeah,
Which is fantastic for the community. It really is.
Some have funds for that specific reason, to like make sure people can get in or help people just to finance being able to go to the event. Like the events, again, ask. If you're ever curious, just ask how you can help, how you can be involved. It's not hard, but it does take that first step of like stepping out of your comfort zone every once in a while.
And you'll be so glad that you did.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we're a fun community.
And the bartender might get fucked. The bartender might get fucked.
Exactly.
One of the things that when people want to volunteer, they think they always have to have somebody already have an organization or event or whatever. But sometimes you see a need and you fill it. The original leather clubs were people who got together and said, we need this kind of camaraderie. We need this club. People who started a play party, people who started a nonprofit for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Somebody had to have that idea, and they didn't wait for anybody. They created it. So never assume that you have to wait to volunteer. If you see a need, a community needs a calendar kept. I'll keep the calendar.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Be on the calendar.
Be on the calendar.
I have a question for you guys. Do you ever feel like when you're out in your full leather gear that you are in danger? Do you ever feel like you're a target, or that you it's definitely making a statement. Do you ever feel like you're in danger?
That's a great question.
I think
Yeah.
Puppy gear specifically, but leather
Yeah.
in general can get a target on you by people that are like,
I don't so much in San Francisco, but when I travel and I go to certain cities and certain towns and I'm in full gear of some sort, I do kind of look around and watch myself much more than I do here.
I think you get the looks, but it's not like drag where you are sticking out like a sore thumb, because some people may just think you're Harley or a biker.
But I can see
Yeah.
the way that things are going right now,
Yeah.
that it's not a far leap for me to make them decide that people dressed in some kind of fetish gear is harmful to the children.
Well, that's exactly where they're going politically.
Which is exactly
It
where
is
they're going.
exactly their agenda. And, I sometimes felt that way in the 70s and then didn't, being in neighborhoods. I think today I'd think twice.
well, we've been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
We did a video 2 years ago about kink at Pride, because it's always an
Oh.
argument
Oh
that
yeah,
happens.
exactly.
And even last year we did a video, and I was like, could you imagine if they came for the drag queens? And
And
Oh, could I imagine? You know, today, honestly, when I was getting ready, I thought, what would I do if I lived in Tennessee? And I
Right.
had to go out and get an Uber. If a child sees me, am I going to get arrested? Am I going to get a fine?
You would.
You know, this is the most, that law passing and the way that they presented all these bills in all of these red states to try and ban drag or classify it as an adult entertainment. Drag, first of all, drag has always been an adult entertainment. Like, drag queens
Yeah.
do not target children.
Yeah.
Drag queens have never targeted children. What Drag Story Hour is a event where, say you're a parent and you have a son and you're like, he wants to play with dolls and his friends are making fun of him, and even my own mother thinks that he's like a little light in the loafers, you know, he's weird, or my daughter doesn't fit in, there's something about their child that they know is different. They're looking for a place where they can just relax and have fun and let their kid be themselves and hear a story maybe that they can
Right.
relate to, or see someone that they can relate to who doesn't make them feel like they're crazy or evil or going to hell or that's putting judgment. Drag Story Hour is just a place for people to go and let children really just be themselves.
Exactly.
It's just about that. It's nothing more.
Nothing more. And it's one of the books that is now banned, was about the 2 male penguins in the New York City Zoo who adopted a chick. And that has been in schools forever. It is now banned in these red Republican states. And you're actually right. You know, if I was a little kid and somebody was saying, you know, there's this story about these 2 male penguins and they adopted this chick, that would have resonated with me more
Yeah.
than Little House on the Prairie, you know?
Exactly. And then the buzzwords of groomer.
yeah.
And
Well-
immediately people jump from drag queen to groomer
groomer.
to pedophile. It's
Right.
like,
Well, that you just nailed it with pedophile. They wanted to pin being gay to pedophiles. We've dealt with this
Always,
in the 70s and
yes.
80s. Now, because they have this dealing with
Focus.
children, this focus, a man in a dress must be a pedophile.
you know
Right.
what?
And-
The worst thing that can happen to a child at Drag Story Hour is if someone shows up with a gun.
Right,
Yeah.
when all the right-wingers
I mean,
show up with their
you know,
guns.
Who do they think they're terrorizing? They're terrorizing these poor kids.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, drag has been in entertainment forever. I mean, I was just thinking of Some Like It Hot.
Some like it hot.
You
Right.
know,
Milton Berle.
Bugs
Yeah,
Bunny.
Bugs
Shakespeare.
Shakespeare.
Who's the guy that does Medea?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
look at that, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic films.
Well,
but you know,
I think we all know what this is. It's just a giant smoke screen. It's really an attack on our entire community, and it's an effort that's going to lead to the criminalization, the silencing, the erasure of queer and trans people.
exactly.
And do you think
Entirely.
the community is responding appropriately?
No,
Are
I
they
think-
having your
I
back?
think that they're like, you know, people. I believe that some people are like, well, you know, it's true. Like, why do they have to have sexual stuff
Well-
around kids? It's like we don't. Like we don't.
Yeah.
We don't. But you know who's doing a good job is Joe My God. I got to give him a shout out because every day he is really publicizing all of the priests and Christian ministers who are arrested every single day.
great.
There is not one drag queen that has ever gone after kids.
I would love to see the number of boys that were molested in Boy Scouts as compared to the number
just
that
the
were
Catholic
molested
Church.
in drag queens or the Catholic Church.
Right.
Like, zero at Drag Queen Story Hour. There have been literally
Zero.
right.
No, you should just take him to Hooters. That's a much better
Exactly.
But I love Hooters. So,
Well-
but you know, I was just thinking. I grew up here in San Mateo, and my parents always went to Finocchio's when I was a child.
Sure.
And they bring back the little postcard with all the men, and I look at it, and I couldn't wait to go. Once I turned
right.
18.
Well,
I was there. Man.
I had a friend in the 70s who applied so many times to get into Charles Pierce's Jewel Box Review, never got in. But tried and tried and tried. And they used to perform at Finocchio's, but that went around the country. It played in straight places. Remember
Of
the Jewel Box
course.
Review? And you know,
No.
well, you know, it was,
We'll show the kids the jewel box.
No, it was this.
I was being polite. I have no idea.
I present to you the Jewel Box Review. First established as a Miami nightclub in 1939 by Doc Brenner and Danny Brown, the Jewel Box showcased enchanting acts of female impersonators to largely straight audiences. 2 years later, the Jewel Box Review took to the road, dazzling and delighting crowds across America.
My mother, I remember when they had moved to Las Vegas, and my mother's favorite show was Boylesque on the Strip.
Exactly.
And we would go in, and I forget the person, the drag queen was the big star. They were on first name basis. And I said, Mom, and she goes, oh, I love this form of entertainment. She went about 25 times to Boylesque. And they always made a fuss over her, and she had a good time.
That was probably
my mother was kind of
Kenny Curve.
It was Kenny Curve.
Yeah.
When I do my television show, am I going to be a boy or a girl? Yes.
Do you have a girl voice?
Do I have a girl's voice?
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
And she loved it, and she was kind of conservative,
Yeah.
but she loved it.
Well, in Provincetown, it was all straight people in Jimmy James's Marilyn Monroe show, you know? And you'd go in there and you felt out of place because you were queer, because everybody else was straight.
Well, it's
and
like-
loving it.
Listen, if you go to DragCon today, that's what you see. You see mothers with their kids,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's hugely crossover. People are like, you know, why is there so many drag queens on TV? Why are there so many trans people now? It's like, guess what? We've always been here.
Right.
Literally always been here. But the minute you get some kind of exposure and more people are talking about it, the more threatened they feel and the more scared they get. So they're pushing back and they're trying to erase us and silence us. And we know how that works.
Doesn't work very well.
Yeah, it's
doesn't
not
work.
our first time at the rodeo, baby.
Don't try to silence a drag queen. It's not gonna work.
Big mistake.
Well, they are. I mean, I'm originally from New York State, and I got to tell you, they are the ones. I know everybody always brings it up, but I'll tell you, if drag queens haven't had enough at Stonewall, a lot of gay organizations, they came out of that. They spurned out of that. That
A
this is
Compton
serious.
cafeteria riot.
The
Here,
co-
San
right,
Francisco predates Stonewall.
Absolutely.
They're like done. They're like, you know what? This ain't happening. Like, yeah,
So
we
Chris
know.
brought up a great point. Do you think that young gay people are reacting the way that, I'm not saying that we reacted much better earlier on, but like with Anita Bryant and all of those things, we did react, and I don't see that kind of outrage.
What I'm not seeing is a visible reaction from our community. I see a lot of online warriors who are
Trying.
She's right there. She's honking.
that are on Twitter talking to their bubble, going, "This is horrible."
Right.
But that's not getting out to. That's not how we used to do activism.
Right.
Armchair activists.
Armchair
Yeah.
activists.
Yeah, but if they inspire somebody, you know, that really does have the skill and the connections to do something different, because I will tell you, like you said, it's absolutely everyday people who started organizations that make a difference.
But when is that going to happen? I mean,
Well-
how long do we
well-
wait?
Well,
And
let's
who
see.
organizes that?
But you want to know something? I've always respected Reverend Sharpton. He shows up in that community when bullshit goes down. Al Sharpton shows up, and he has been a voice, and he does it on his own. We have an organization that takes millions and millions of dollars out of our community, and we don't have a voice that always shows up. And we used to, I'll tell you. And that voice, because things weren't, you know, like how they are on social media, was us out in the streets. Local activism, like the Sisters, like Onyx doing their things, is important to be visible.
Right.
And, you know, we need in our community somebody that is going to get down into our communities, stop being at the Washington parties, and be in the goddamn streets with
Right,
us.
because we had a sense of urgency. Like
We
we were
did.
literally fighting for
You know,
our lives.
Yeah.
Like,
We are again.
Our
We are.
community was
We
like-
are again. We just don't realize
Right,
it yet.
exactly.
We are. Well,
It's like the water is boiling and we don't realize.
listen,
Yes.
when HTLV3 first came around, and I was a queer little baby nurse, and there was this great doctor in the ER who said, you know, these people down here, none of us are gay. We don't know anything about this. You know, it's that new thing. And will you get on and talk to him? And I was like, I've been a nurse for 1 year. What am I going to say? But that was the start of people starting to do things, like the
Right.
Sisters saying, you know, here's how you protect yourself. Here are, you know, guidelines for safer sex. That came
I mean,
from
the-
the streets.
We made the progress. We were like the right to serve, the right to marry. People start to
Yeah.
feel really drag races in every country and
Right.
every television. So you start to feel really safe and complacent and sort of
Right.
chill. You're like, we're good, we're
But
good.
now we
you know
need
what?
to
Look at Roe
stand
versus
up.
Wade. We're not good. Like it can
Yeah.
change in a
We're not-
heartbeat.
well,
so we
it's-
need to get that urgency back. We need to get people
We do.
I agree.
to stand up and fight. And drag queens need parents to stand up and go, I love Drag Story Hour. It saved my kid's life because literally is what it can do.
And I've seen
It
that
is.
a few times now.
Yeah,
and
good.
I'd
So we
love
need that.
more of that.
And the
Yeah.
sisters need to keep fighting with the leather community, and the white people need to keep supporting the black people, and we all need to come together.
Come together.
We all
And-
need to
and-
support the drag queens right
And
now.
can I say that I think we need to align very, very strongly with the trans community
Yes.
because they are along with drag queens, they are the #1 target in the red states
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
they have.
And a
Yeah.
lot of queers have stood back and said, well,
It's not us.
it's not
And they
us.
shouldn't, because
And they are us.
their target is all of us.
It's
They
all
are.
of us.
It is all of us.
Yeah,
and
I
when
agree.
we separate from the very people who took the risk and started protesting early on, which was drag queens. Well, I'll tell you one other thing. The women, the gay women, who, when I was a nurse early on, I was a baby nurse, didn't know much. However, you know, when we had funerals and Fred Phelps started showing up and protesting our funerals, I'll tell you, those women who used to be the protectors at abortion clinics to get women in showed up. And they showed up at funerals and started doing things that was all volunteer, all through word of mouth. And you know what I'm worried about? If something happened to our community like HIV did today, I don't think we'd have the same response. I think that there are political groups that would see it as an opportunity to destroy us more.
So what do we do?
Well, I
Because
think
I've-
people have to go to local organizations in their communities like the Sisters, support them, because our national organizations have not done much for us. They didn't alert us that this was coming.
Yeah.
And if they didn't read the tea leaves that all this stuff was going to start happening, then what good are they?
Well, I think they tried, or at least some organizations tried. I don't think we wanted to hear it. Like Roma said, we got a bit complacent for a while.
Very
Right there.
complacent. Because we got everything we wanted
Yeah.
for a
Yes,
while.
yes.
Right? We
Yeah.
like look at the gayborhoods, they're gone. And
Oh.
we've gentrified into
And
nothingness
Yeah.
now.
we're living in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
We need to support
Outside.
our outside in those
Tennessee.
red areas in whatever way we can. Throw our money at their needs, activism in any way we can. Maybe we need to physically go there and protest. I don't know what we need to do, but we sit in our blue bubble
Right.
and we have to understand that there are people that I know people say, well, you're in a red state, just move. They can't always
can't.
move.
No.
They don't want to move. We have to fight for them.
Fight for them. And you know what happened in Florida? Al Sharpton showed up, and within 3 days, he had a march of hundreds of people into Tallahassee about that AP course, you know, in Black Studies.
Yep.
And you know, we have organizations that are taking millions of dollars out of our community, and actually in Florida, queers and the queer community is more under attack. You know, they're constantly making these laws, and I just think people need to support their local active organizations like Onyx, like the Sisters, because they're the ones doing the real work in these communities.
Show up.
I have a
Show
question
up.
for Amp.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Amp asked a little bit earlier, so what do we do? And as an older gentleman, I have to admit that I'm sitting back waiting for younger people to do something and get it all going so that I could say, you know, good job, y'all.
Yeah.
Are younger people waiting for us to do something?
I think younger people think they're doing something by posting a TikTok and a retweet and a YouTube video. Like, we're active in our scene here in San Francisco, but like online, people think, oh my god, I got 1 million likes and views on a TikTok. I'm popping off. They don't care.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
don't
but-
care.
but, you
they
know,
want the
each-
impression.
Why not?
They want the engagement. What needs to happen is, yeah, we have to have people in the organizations and in our demographics that are actually advocating for us. But it's also terrifying as fuck.
Yeah.
And you know,
But showing up and doing the work is
Yeah.
important
Right.
too.
and I think we need to march into legislators' offices and confront them directly.
Peaceful, confrontational.
I have
Absolutely.
been in the congressional offices. I
Me
have
too.
lobbied directly. It actually matters. They listen.
They do.
And even if it's an aide that says, I'll take the notes, the congressperson can't be here right now. Your physical presence matters. So showing up, going directly to them and say, you can't do this to us.
Right. But you know, it is about the voters. And I think those people, if they even rally a few of whoever you call them, you know, like their peeps, whatever, their likes, I don't know. I'm an old man. But if they get somebody who didn't vote to show up, that is activism. Because I'll tell you, Gen Z showed up. And we need Gen Z to keep showing up. Because they are a new voting bloc that can counterbalance all of these right-wing voters.
Let me ask you, is money a form of volunteering? Donations to organization?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
There are people that have money that may not want to be the front-facing person, and they can support an organization or they can support a cause. I think it absolutely is a form of volunteering.
It is.
I think it takes a lot of trust because we all have heard of corporations and people who give money to both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
So
There's that,
to me, it's like if you show up physically, that means a lot more to me. Yes, I want
Than
your
just
money
writing a
too.
check.
But if you're writing a check, you might be writing a check to those other people too.
Yeah.
Well-
That's a good point.
I'll tell you, when I was working, I'm retired now, but I did donate money to the Gay Center and to HRC, and I stopped because I was like, the Gay Center finally opened here in San Francisco, and I think it could still be something, but it's not what they first polled. And it isn't, you know, it's not a entry point for us, just like HRC. You know, Get Equal used to do a lot of really good activism, and they kind of fizzled away in about 2018. But, you know, I think money is what is going to get somebody the vehicle to finally say something meaningful and be somewhere meaningful.
We need both.
We need
We
both.
need the money
We need
and
both.
we need
Everybody
physical
needs
presence.
money, especially today, for sure.
So, my final question is, how do organizations make their volunteers feel appreciated? How do you get burnout volunteering, and how does an organization deal with that?
I mean, I think that's why you don't see volunteers as active as they are today. It feels thankless. Even this conversation, which is a wonderful spark for people to hopefully get involved in activism and volunteering, is so thankless because people online will try to argue with you. They'll try to dislike the video. They'll try to post comments about how this is not helpful, or they'll accuse you of not doing enough. Where it's the thanklessness that tends to, I think, make people not want to be engaged and involved.
I think you're right.
So I'm going to use the example of the organization for the shirt you're wearing,
Yes.
San Francisco Leatherman Discussion Group. Every year, they have a volunteer appreciation event. They print them a special T-shirt. They have a big party. They say, here are our volunteers. We want to thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
We also use this event every year to commemorate our volunteers. We're a all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit. Without our volunteers, we wouldn't exist, so we want to acknowledge them.
That means so much. Every organization, every event, anytime people volunteer, if you thank them, it means so much to them. And to Am's point about some people, not maybe volunteering enough, they're going to then want to.
Yeah.
It means so much to someone. It doesn't take a lot to say thank you. Here's a token of our appreciation, whatever it might be. Put them in front of the audience, have the audience clap for them.
I love it.
It really matters.
Yeah, check in with your volunteers.
Yeah.
Be like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Are you great? Do you need anything?
Yeah.
If you need a break, let's figure it out. Make sure that they feel appreciated and cared for.
And if you attend an event, don't abuse them if you're having a bad time or something didn't go the way you think.
This is a BDSM club.
And that's okay.
The sisters do this at Easter, like the little volunteer area with the snacks and
Which
stuff.
is great.
I mean, it's a small thing, but who doesn't want to be in a sectioned off area with some snacks that no one else gets?
Or free shit.
It's really the
Free
little
shit,
things.
yeah.
It's like, oh, I got this little thing of red wine.
If you're running an organization, it does not cost much to get a bulk order of something special, monogrammed or personalized. Even just stopping whatever's happening to say, can all the volunteers stand up? Thank you. Give a clap. Make those people feel special.
To what he alluded, feed your volunteers. If you're going to be there for a while, feed your volunteers.
Or get some
Make sure they
wine.
have plenty of food and drink. and they feel like they're taken care of.
Yeah, we eat it at Tenderloin
Oh, yeah.
Tessie's holiday dinners, and sometimes there was even like a pie left over.
Ooh, a pie.
When I volunteered at Project Open Hand, they would let the volunteers take the food that they couldn't give away to people, and that saved me because I was in a rough spot there. So I volunteered. They give me food. It was great. But I just want to say one more thing. Talking about the T-shirts, I'm wearing my Tom of Finland shirt today, but my favorite is from the Boxer Rescue because each year they put the names of the dogs who have passed away, and my 2 dogs have their names on that shirt, and I just love that shirt.
Well, of course.
I see their names.
Oh,
That is really sweet.
That is.
One other thing is, I was at a leather event, and the MC at every evening event would say to the audience, everybody here realize that there's a lot of volunteers making this happen. When you see them, thank them.
Yeah.
When you walk in that door and that person takes your ticket or whatever, thank them for volunteering because they're not getting paid, they're volunteered.
Yeah, I actually do that a lot.
Yeah.
Even like the people who work for the SPCA, like at the Macy's holiday windows.
Oh, yeah.
Shantae and I go down there all the time to look at it, and we always thank the volunteers, for being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So, final question, and I think I know the answer to this. Do you think there's ever going to come a time when you hang up your boa and walk away? Sashay away?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Something along the lines of what you're saying is like we're waiting for the younger generation to step up and feel the urgency and take the reins. And I feel a lot of that sometimes. I feel like I can pull back a little bit. Maybe I don't have to be the sister who does, all of it, or the person who shows up for all these things. But I don't think I'll ever stop until I probably physically can't. I hope that somebody will wheel me out if need be. And I mean, why would I? Like I said, there's always a new cause. There's always a new reason to be of service or to stand up, march with women and gun control and the planet. Like there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
And none of it's going to be solved overnight, and definitely not in my lifetime. So I'm committed.
You're only 37.
Thank you.
And
I am a young Christian woman.
And can I say it? All my friends will attest to this because I've said it more than once. You are one of my favorite humans. You represent everything that is good about humanity. You volunteer, you're heartless, you're there, you show up,
Always.
you do the work.
On time.
And you were on time.
Always on time.
You are one of my, and I can point to 20 friends that will say I have said that. You are one of my favorite humans. I hold you up with so much respect because of what you do and who you are.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
It's true.
You.
So thank you so much for coming on our show and sharing.
It's true.
Well, I love all of you too, and you know that. You know that.
Well,
Thank you. This is great. This is actually more fun than I thought it was going to be. This is great.
You didn't think we were
No, I
fun?
knew it was going to be good, but I mean, I've had the best time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think that I'd like to personally, I think we all should, this show couldn't happen without the volunteers behind the camera.
Yay.
Keegan, Samson, today Artie. Thank you for showing up for all of our shows. And
Are you
I
fucking
think-
kidding me?
Oh, and Amp.
But he's a part of it.
But you're the producer. You produce this shit.
None of these cameras are working.
We gave you wine. But I also think we should thank volunteers at home,
Right.
For all that they do and stepping up, because everyone does volunteer in some way or aspect. So thank you guys. Thank you for volunteering.
Thank
and
you.
keep it up. And we're waiting for the next generation to step up too. So with that, I'm going to call time on this. Thank you for watching. I want to thank our sponsors, Leather Daddy Skin Co. and Mr. S Leather. If you want to see more episodes, please leave comments and likes below. If you want to be notified of our next one, ring that bell down below. And I want to thank Roma once again for being on our show. And where can people find you?
Well, I'm all over social media. I am risking my life with the Chinese government on TikTok.
Wow.
But I'm not there a lot. I'm mostly on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and everything's at Sister Roma.
Okay, and what about the sisters themselves?
The Sisters website is thesisters.org.
Okay.
And follow us and come come volunteer with us. We would love to see you.
Fantastic. We can't wait for Easter.
Yeah.
Me too.
Thank you. And we want to thank you at home for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.